Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Us People podcast. I'm your host, Savia Rocks, and today I am abundantly humbled to have Tekiva here with me. She is a founder of two music companies, which we're definitely going to get into, and she's also a beautiful songwriter. I've had a chance to do research on her, and I'm not going to spoil the story for you. I want her to be able to tell this to everyone herself. Tekiva, thank you so much for taking your time to come on the Young People show. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to be here. I love talking, so I'm ready.
I love this. I love this. So, my first question for you, which I absolutely adore and love asking guests, is could you tell me a bit about your background, where you grew up, and how this influenced you to be the person who you are today?
Oh, so I grew up in East London, and I'd say between Hackney and Walthamstow. I say between because there were moments of like I was at secondary school in Walthamstow, then I was at secondary school in Hackney, and there were times where a lot of my life was in Hackney, but they're around the corner from each other. So I'm
Yeah.
like East London, and then Tottenham's around the corner from me. So, and I'm still in Walthamstow. So, yeah, that I would say has been a big shaper of just the background and my upbringing. And I don't know, I went to a primary school and I was thinking back about this, like I had so many talented people that I went to school with, and how just diverse my environment was. Um, we even had this like choir teacher who was like, she was always teaching us these kind of like deep, um, kind of tribal songs from like
Yep.
different cultures, and I just felt like I appreciated having, and then like even in assemblies we'd sing songs like Bob Marley and things like that, that I'm just looking at schools like, you lot have backtracked. I don't know what happened, but my school was lit. But yeah, I loved just being, I guess that was more Hackney. It just felt like, yeah, it was a melting pot of culture.
Mhm.
I myself am mixed Polynesian, so my heritage, like the Polynesian islands, not many people know about in the UK. In America, yeah, because they've got celebrities that I don't know, like The Rock or
Yeah.
Bruno Mars, and they're all Polynesian. But like in the UK, people didn't really know about that culture. So I felt like I was taken in by like Caribbean culture and just their vibes. And so I just felt like I appreciated growing up in East London. And that definitely impacted just the way my journey went with music, because of the types of creatives that I had around me who were inspiring me,
Mhm.
who still inspire me. Um, and yeah, getting to work with those people as well over time. Some of them were like people that I knew from back in the day, from like my teens,
Yeah.
and I've just kept in touch with, and I've been inspired by their work. And yeah, it's been a cool journey in that regard.
See, I love that. I wish schools now, I go into a school now, they wouldn't be singing Bob Marley.
I know. I'm actually confused. Like, how have we gone backwards on this? I don't understand that, because even my daughters, they, when I've gone to their schools, I'm just like, this is dry. Like, this is
This
not.
is true.
Yeah,
It's true because when I go to schools to teach, for example, and I ask what they're learning, none of them would say any of the songs that have resonance in the way that they articulate the lyrics, for example, the way that it penetrates through your soul and then you feel the music, which I know we're going to get into eventually when we're
yeah,
talking now, but I don't see that anymore. And the music of today, which I'm sure you'll kind of agree with me, and then the music of maybe like 20, 30 years going backwards was completely different in terms of lyrics and music and the feeling towards the music as well.
yeah, for sure. I just think that there was an organic grounding feeling
Exactly.
about music that I had growing up. Don't get me wrong, there was always the pop artists who were like the Kylie Minogues. And I remember my dad, like, if I ever dared play that in the house, it was just like, you're getting shut down. Like, my family were a family of like real music and real musicians. So, and then, I guess a degree of me appreciated the pop thing for what it did, but there was a lot of just real music. And but saying that, I feel like it comes in waves, right? And then
Yeah, it
there's
does.
people tapping into that stuff. And I've got daughters who are in their teens, and they will say, "Mum, do you know about this song?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? That's my era." So I feel like they're also cottoning on to stuff that I was raised on, and
Yeah.
then they're also kind of showing me about things. So I love that kind of intergenerational mix of talent and skill, and maybe even the freshness of how they might approach older songs, like in covers. So but I can definitely see the shift, and there's things that I appreciate about that era, but there's also things I appreciate about now.
You know what? I love the fact that you said both because you just said it for me. There's a lot of music from the past that people are sampling and remaking again, even taking sections of the lyrics and putting it into their own kind of flair or their own kind of rhythm, which is something that I love to hear as well. And it's amazing, like you said, that they take it and put a spin on it. And you're like, I would have never imagined it like that. But that's actually quite
Totally.
cool. That's actually really,
Yeah.
really cool. So I love that. So my next question for you is, and this is where I love to get to know more about my guest, which is, can you describe yourself or define yourself as a person, but also who do you see when you look in the mirror? But on the flip side of that question, has there ever been a time where you have looked in the mirror and not recognized the person staring back at you? How did you manage to go from a person that you felt didn't have the purpose that you wanted to have to becoming the person that you felt had strength and purpose in the world?
Oh, okay. I'm gonna do my best to answer this because that I love that question. I think, but the first part of it, just remind me. The first part of your question
It's
was
just, can you define yourself as a person?
okay. Okay, I'll do that part first. Oh, I find it hard because I find labels really um limiting.
I do as
I
well.
feel, yeah, so I feel like I reject a lot of labels, and I feel like they don't match who I am. Or and then where I kind of seep out of a lot of labels because it's not quite me. However, there are things that I'd say I'm quite zen as a person. I'm quite chill. I like a lot of time to process things that are things that I'm working on, things that I feel align with me, things that I feel give me energy and make me feel like, yeah, I'm excited about working on this today. I'm excited about even in times where I've like managed like my roster of clients and just kind of making sure that they were the right fit for me, that it's like, yeah, I can see how I can breathe life into these projects, and just kind of making sure like a lot of my relationships and friendships have that element of like, yeah, I see how we play an important role for one another. And so trying to like just move with intention through my life is an important thing for me. um and just to, yeah, I think just to own myself, kind of own myself as a woman, um kind of embrace the journey of where I'm at, and not shy away from the things that make me uniquely me, the
Yes.
downs, the kind of flaws, the kind of quirks, the just kind of on that journey of authenticity. So that's basically, I think I grew up in like I guess a Christian environment, but it wasn't just a Christian, it was a mixture of things. But I think my thing has been just a quest to get back to my like authentic self of just knowing what is it that feels right for me, what does my inner compass kind of show me, what, rather than it kind of like being about external voices and external people's opinions and judgments, and just trying to relieve myself of that as much as possible, and kind of just walk in what I know feels right for me. That's one part of it, right? So then what was the second part? Remind me of the second.
The second part is, has there ever been a time where you looked in the mirror and not recognized the person staring back at you?
Yes, for sure. I think it's happened multiple times in, and it can happen in seasonally, I think,
I agree.
because yeah. So it's like, for me, I've gone through marriage, I've gone through having kids, I've gone through all these different shifts of my personhood, um, shifting and changing, and then even the dynamics of my marriage changing, and then not being with that person anymore. Just trying to navigate all these things that kind of came my way. There was times where I felt like, as a woman, we're great at putting our needs sometimes on the back burner and slowing down for the sake of others, for the sake of others' dreams and the nurturing of another person. And in that, it's easy to get lost or lose the sight of yourself. And
100%.
yeah, and then trying to go on that journey to reconnect to myself, and then connecting with others who I can see are maybe also in that place, and kind of just spurring one another on to like stay listening to yourself, stay listening to what the little kind of voice inside you that you know is kind of guiding or kind of prompting you, but you just kind of suppress it, you just kind of ignore it, you just stuff it down. So I think there's been a lot of that in my life in different times, but then I think I've also, it comes to a head where I'm just like, okay, yeah, I'm tired now, I'm actually drained of playing this role and I can't do it anymore, and I'm shedding kind of, I don't want to say dead weight, because there's a lot of it has a purpose in your life for that season or for that time. So I would never want, it's like you want to honor that for that season, but then when the season is expired, it feels like it's expired. So it's kind of being honest with yourself about that. And then what does that mean? Like what choices do you have to make now? And that has affected every area of my life. But so I feel that's how I come back home to myself again,
Yeah.
is by kind of paying attention to all of those things. But yeah, for sure. And I think working in the industry that I've worked in it for this amount of time, it's like it's an industry that is constantly telling you to chase trends,
Yeah.
chase formulas. This is what you, and I'm just like, formulas, like rules are there until someone comes and breaks the rules. So then what? Like, so I just kind of have kind of politely disrespected all of that, like thanks but no thanks type of thing. And I feel like that's worked for me, because I'm very much like the creator of my own blueprint for my life.
That.
Don't get me wrong, sometimes that's tiring because I want to just have my 9 to 5 and just get paid like everyone else does. But then but that wouldn't be me then, and I think I'd slowly be dying inside sitting
Yeah.
behind like an office desk. So
You know, it's funny. I've actually heard so many people say when I had a 9 to 5 before I walked out of it, yeah, it's a cool it's a cool story. But when I decided, yep, I've had enough, and I find that if people don't see your self-worth of who you are as an individual or person in this world, humanitarian, whoever you are, they don't deserve the quality of who you are. You need to leave for your own self-worth. It's such an amazing thing to do at first, even if it's in a relationship or anything. You decide to leave. It's the hardest thing to do when you think of it, because you're thinking the what ifs, what's going to happen next? Am I going to be okay by myself? Am I going to do it by myself? I've got no one supporting me. You've got all these factors that play in your head. And usually 75% of the time, us as human beings think of negative thoughts, and 25% of them are usually positive thoughts. The best thing that we can do is try to use that 25% to manifest goodness for ourselves, just like what you're saying. But in the spectrum of things, I always find that if we leave to do something that we love rather than doing a 9 to 5, our soul ends up not being destroyed and fulfilled. There's a massive difference, but it's just about taking that step, which is abundantly true about everything you've just said.
Yeah, I think that mindset of having an abundant mindset and remembering that is, it's like tending to a garden. Like you're always having to keep check, like, is the air right, is the soil right, is the, do I need to weed out some things? It's because everything around us has conditioned us to think in lack. And I've had so many conversations with people over the years of, like, in business or when there's been really hard times, and they've said to me, don't you just want to, like, get a normal job, and why don't you just want to? And I'm like,
No.
yeah. No. And the thing is that then later they're like, wow, like, and I guess they're people just projecting, right? People just projecting their fears
Their
onto
insecurities,
their
exactly that.
insecurities.
Yep.
And it's like you have to be quite resilient to let that kind of bounce off you and just say, yeah, that's a narrative I just don't align myself with. Like, I hear it, it's a real thing if you want to go with it, but like, yeah, I just am trying to to be careful, I guess, what you surround yourself with and listen to. And I've said to friends that are like, what are you going to do, what are you going to do, what are you going to do? And I'm like, listen, I'm just cooking dinner right now. I'm just doing what's in front of me right now. Like, the whole freaking out thing for the future, I'm just like, I don't see the benefit of it. I mean,
Yeah, it's true.
Yeah. So I think I've definitely walked through, the industry I work in is one of feasting and famine. And if you can't get used to those two extremes, it's just not for everyone. And I understand that, had parents that were just like, they just want you to get a good job. And um and don't get me wrong, there's some parents that maybe were like, I just want my kids to feel fulfilled or have a sense of purpose. But I think they didn't really align that with, in their minds, with their jobs. It was just like, no, you just work whatever job and then, I don't know, get fulfilled some other way. But I think we're in an era, and maybe it's the millennial era, that has kind of shifted that way. It's like, okay, people are wanting, like, why can't that affect every area of my life? Why does it have to just be confined to, like, after I clock out of work and go back home, and you're only left with a few hours anyway? So it's like, that way
It's true.
it becomes soul destroying for a lot of people. But the alternative, I'm not gonna lie, it's not for the faint-hearted.
It's a hard in any creative industry is a hard industry to be in, because it's like, okay, you're doing a 9 to 5, but then we decide we're going to leave the 9 to 5, but then we end up doing 12 to 12 because we're, we're so engrossed. And then I see your face there. You're like, yep.
That part, because even then you're thinking, even the 12 to 12 part is real, right? For
Mhm.
starters. Even after that, you're thinking, okay, what about the next job and the next job and the next job? Because you can't really get too comfortable with just what job you're on right now. you're
Exactly.
thinking, you have to kind of be thinking 10 steps ahead. So you're just trying to be present with what you're doing now, and then you're trying to give everything to that. And I mean, I work with great people and teams, so, and it's weird how it can become a norm because you're enjoying it. Because if you actually enjoy it, you're thinking, yeah, I'd rather be in this position thinking about what I could be doing next, or what exhilarates me as an idea next. But yeah, I can also understand why it'd be scary for a lot of people.
Like you said, I think it's a thing where we've come into the universe and we've all been kind of presented with what our purpose is going to be. Some people take it and say, yeah, I'm going to take it and I'm going to utilize it. Some people are like, no, I want an easy life. And for us, like we say as creatives, we turn around and say, it's not always about, the easy life, it's about the end goal. And we have an end goal, whichever it might be for each individual. But at the end of it, we're like, you know what? I don't want to get into a position, like I'm sure you might be the same, where when we're all old and you can't do anything anymore. I don't want to be lying down and seeing all the things just through my imagination that I could have done that I didn't
Mm,
do. I want to look around and be old and not be able to move anymore and be like, I done everything I wanted. I did
it's
everything I
so
wanted to
true.
do.
I think that liberation that comes with that, or just kind of like the world is your oyster type of mindset,
Exactly.
um, we're quite privileged to experience that as a reality for, like, there's a lot of people in a lot of countries and here as well that are just like, well, we just got to get by. We don't have the luxury to think of all those things. And maybe it's the kind of us standing on the shoulders of like our parents or our parents' parents, depending on like when they came to the country. Because I know my family are a family essentially of like a colonized country, so they ended up here, but it's not. Um, it wasn't their land. It wasn't like they didn't feel like they were here. Um, because they just loved England. It was for something else. It was for a greater purpose and a greater good. So it was like, now to be the recipient of that and to create our own mark, I think is a powerful thing. Yeah.
I love that. So I want to talk more about you being a songwriter in the music industry, but also before we get there, I would love to know how your journey began in finding out that this is what you were emotionally connected to, which was music.
So it started, I mean, I would always sing, and I was like in an environment where you yourself know Bim. He met me, and it was via someone through a church channel that, and I would sing at church from, I'd come from that background, so I was like enjoying just being at youth groups and doing my thing. And then at school I had my own outlets for like singing. And then um I'd say those environments really nurtured this, oh, T, you can sing, or like you should come and do this or come and do that. And I had a lot of encouragement in those arenas, so that kind of put me onto like, or people would say, oh, you should work with this person and that
Yeah,
person. And so there was a whole like sea of creatives that were kind of arising from those um places that kind of affirmed like, yeah, I've got something and I'm moving in it. And I just enjoyed it as a therapeutic tool. I think I just loved coming up with, I love language is one of the things that, you know, it's always in there somewhere, whether we're speaking and conversing, whether it's me writing something in a journal, or whether it's me writing a song, or whether it's me reading. There's something about language that um I just adore. Like I can't help it. It's just there. And even sometimes friendships that I have where I love the way they say certain things, or how their mind thinks and how they think to articulate it. And I can just be in a friendship because of that, like because of that back and forth. And it's interesting. It's been interesting to observe that in myself over the years, because the years go by and you're like, this has always been there. It's
Yep.
been there from young. And so I think that love of language and then voice and just that fusion, there was just something special there for me. And then I loved experiencing that as a songwriter for others, because I think what would happen is that I'd get into the room, and often a lot of the producers I've worked with, they're quite somewhat, they would admit they're somewhat antisocial, and they don't
Yes.
really want to talk. And I'm there and I just love it all. I'm just like, yes, so talk to me, let's talk about life. And then I'm like, that what you said there, let's write about that. Or and it's very much coming from them. And I
Yes.
just would enjoy soaking up the kind of stories, the kind of how they might see, or the emotions that are attached to their experiences at the time. And then the task of like writing a song about that, I felt like this, I was made for this. So yeah, I would just love that process. And I would love the kind of process of working with the producer and saying, I feel like it would be cool if we fused these sounds, and working with someone that was creatively, that could make that happen. Yeah, it's just been an amazing journey in that respect.
I absolutely love the way you answered that question. No, it makes a lot of sense, especially from a songwriter's point of view. And both of us being obviously songwriters, we kind of see things from a different perspective. And sometimes what we would also do, as much as we love connecting with people and talking to people, there'll be a moment, I don't know if this is the same for you, but there'll be a moment where I just like to observe, just to see what's going on. And sometimes observing tells you more about the story than speaking sometimes. And I find that is a beautiful thing to be able to do.
Yeah, that exactly that. I think what you're saying is really powerful, because I'd be in sessions with people,
Yeah.
and sometimes I'd suggest, just from feeling or being in their presence, I'd
Yeah.
say, I'd kind of feel like, oh, maybe they're feeling like this. And I'd say, why don't we write a song about this? Does that resonate with you?
Yeah.
And they're like, how did you know? And I'm like, oh, I, in my head, I thought that was obvious, that between the lines of things that they've said, I've kind of pulled out something that is like, yeah, that's kind of it, but I didn't know how to express it, or I didn't know how to say it, or, and it's just, you only get that from observing. You only get that from reading in between the lines and seeing what's going beneath what, like, someone shows you, I guess, because there's all the kind of surface stuff that people will say, and then you can kind of see through it a little bit, like you're like, hmm.
I think it's a gift as well because at the same time, a lot of people say to me, sometimes a songwriter kind of has to be a therapist in a way, which is funny to hear, but it's also really true because
100%.
you're taking someone's feelings from their mind and you're putting it down in a melody composition, and you're working with the producer to make the producer understand as well. Obviously, they're going to have their own way of articulating the emotion themselves, but when you're working together with someone, it's nice to be able to have that connection to understand that, which I love the way you put that too. That works really well. That works really well. So my
Sorry.
Oh, it's okay. It's totally okay. So my next question for you is, how do you believe music serves as a universal language to transcend barriers and connect people on a deeper level? You okay?
Sorry, I've had my laptop, and then my laptop went faulty, and then I've put my phone. I'm on my phone right now, and then this, it's like people are calling. I've like put it on do not disturb, so I don't
It's
know how we
totally okay.
rectify that.
Oh, it's totally okay. It's absolutely fine. It's okay. So How do you believe music serves as a universal language that transcends barriers and connects people on a deeper level?
I feel there's something powerful and special in regards to just like the community with just what you see, how you see people connecting via music, and in environments that are like, you know, you might see it in a football stadium where they're all singing and there's this like sense of euphoria and everyone's holding hands and hugging each other. You see this emotion that erupts that people don't usually express in the office or in an everyday situation, but they allow themselves in these environments, and music is always involved in those moments, I find. And I just think the power that it has to help us feel things that, you know, emotions that a lot of people are not aware that they're even experiencing, or aware that they're articulate, like they just don't know how to articulate some of these things. And unless you are like someone that is in therapy, or, and even then you've often got someone that you're bouncing off of to highlight things to you. I feel like music is the a way or a tool where people get to experience this stuff in ways that you don't normally experience with people day to day. So that is like the thing that I think is the thing that just brings us together. And what I love about working in music is that you could be working with people and you'll just be working with random people that you would never meet. If I just walk down the road in my area, I may not think to talk to that person.
True.
And then I may not even think that that person would like this genre of music, or and you're just meeting people that are just like you. I mean, and I think of it in regards to like, do you know like Rick Rubin and the
Yes, 100%.
yeah, and you know, yeah, he's got his whole book, and you would never put someone like Rick Rubin in your mind with someone like Jay-Z, and just that fusion of like, okay, what is this Zen guru man with a beard gonna do with Jay-Z? But it's like, that's what I love about the industry, or just people in music, that the connection is based on something else, and it's not to do with all the labels that we identify with. It's actually a connector in and of itself, and that's how I think it's powerful as a tool. And when that's not polluted, when we can just embrace that, I think it's like there's the commercial aspect of like music, but then there's just a people aspect of music.
Yes,
That without that people aspect, you don't have an industry.
that is true. That is 100% true. If I was to ask you, if there was one song that you wished you wrote, what song would it be and why?
I feel like that's a hard question to answer, because I I feel like I love the Motown era.
Ooh.
And a lot of just that kind of rawness and emotion, raw emotion. But also I'm quite a conscious soul, so I kind of love the the kind of healing songs that were of that era. Even like, you know, what's that movie with like, is it Etta James? Even all the songs in her era, and I know um I don't know who all the songwriters were, but maybe I can't say, I really can't make one decision on one song, because for me, when I think about songs, it's in eras. Like they're they're like, okay, this song, these songs in this era, I would have loved to be a part of that era. And
Yeah.
I'd say the Motown. So if I had to answer, it would be like the Motown era.
No,
I
that's
would
good
have loved
enough.
to be.
That is good enough. That's a good era to actually be in, because that's when, you know, you saw the drama, you saw the creativity, you saw what they were going through in their own lives, which
Hmm.
proves that creativity isn't an easy path. We don't just deal with, yeah, we make great music, but at the same time, I think it all intertwines with each other in a way, because when you go through a hard time in your life, you're able to use that hard time and pull it down. And then that sends out to everybody else who's like, whoa, you actually went through that, or this happened. But even if you were going through a bad time, you still managed to find love. And
Hmm.
that's something that a lot of people are like blown away by, because no matter how hard your time is, you decide, and I say this to everyone, everything in life is a choice that we decide to make. So even if, for example, you have bad things that are happening, you decide whether you're going to filter yourself into those bad things, or you're going to come out and say, you know what, I'm looking at it from a different perspective, and I'm saying to myself, I can handle things differently. And that's what makes us all different. So I think that's a beautiful thing too.
Yeah,
Definitely.
that reframing your perspective on events and like hardships, I think, is the most like powerful thing in journeying through a lot of this stuff of knockbacks or um challenges. What, but I'm curious to know, what would yours be out of, because
Oh,
you're a songwriter
I'm,
too.
I'm so happy you asked me that question. So um, it is a hard question to answer. And it would most probably be a song by Carol. Do you know Carol King?
Yes, of
Right.
course. Yeah.
There's there's,
Yeah.
there's Carol King, there's Diane Warren.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, I feel like the way that they use, and they're women who never really show themselves. Like true
Yeah, no.
songwriters, they never really show who they are. And
Because I don't feel like for them it's about that. And I don't know for you.
exactly, it's exactly the same. I like being in the
Yeah.
background. I've never felt like I've wanted to be in the front. I've never felt like that was my purpose. I've never been bothered about numbers or figures, just titles, just like you said. It's always been
Mm.
about the creative part, or knowing that I can walk freely down the road. And I know this might sound silly, you know, being able
No,
to
it
walk
don't.
freely down the road and go to a supermarket and then hear my song play on the radio and nobody knows that I wrote it. That's
Yeah.
what I'm after from life. I'm not after the, standing in front of all the cameras and stuff. That's not my life at all. But
Mm.
if you were to say to me, Savia, what song would you choose? It would be very hard. And it would definitely be a song from either Carol King or Diane Warren, because they've written some awesome songs in their life. And there are so many different, or Nina Simone. That's another one. Nina
Nina
Simone.
Simone.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
yeah.
powerful. Yeah.
I like the song Mississippi because there's a backstory to it.
Yeah, you're right. I think for me, Nina Simone is definitely one of those like artists who, you know, when it's like their life embodied their music, everything was cohesive. There was no like, okay, today we're gonna just write a song about this because of, it was, everything is from the core of your being, and it's like that's just the, and you can see in the kind of the highs and lows of her life as well. And I remember watching the documentary on Nina Simone and just being in awe of that journey and just how that then kind of was brought forward in her music and how she expressed herself, and that self-expression I think is a powerful thing, especially for women, and for her, especially as a black woman, for her in that era, you're just like, yeah, to do that, it's like you're tapping into magic.
Even like Aretha Franklin, she went through a lot, and when she was writing her songs as well, that was powerful. Even to watch what she went through, and I know you're nodding your head like yep, like
I
every
love Aretha, I love her. Yeah,
so
so I
the
hear
way
that.
on the piano as well is such a fantastic thing to be able to do, to just jump on it and just to be able to play or just to be able to hum it. And usually, I don't know if this happens to you as well. A lot of songs for myself come in my dreams. It's really
Yeah.
the same
And
thing
then
happens.
you're trying, yeah, and then you're trying to wake up and sing it into a microphone, and you're like, this does not sound like how in my dream it sounded, but it might translate. But I just love that ability, that kind of, it almost feels like a download,
Yeah.
and you don't know when the downloads come in. But yeah, for sure.
Oh, man. If I was to say to you, if you could bring one musician, if I was going to take you and put you on a desert island, and I was going to say to you, you can bring one musician, one president, and one activist. Or I can see you thinking now, who would you bring to the island and why?
Okay, wait. An activist
Yeah.
and
One activist, one president, and one musician.
I'm not gonna lie, I think I'd choose my friends that I see as
Oh, yes, yes,
this one is an activist
yeah,
and
yeah,
this
go
one.
for it.
So although if I had to choose a president, okay, maybe not a president, but a president's wife, maybe
Go for it.
Michelle Obama. I would have to take her.
Okay. I can see
Um
why.
yeah, she's just got what a lot of them don't have, and you're just like, seriously, this is what we're dealing with out here. But cool. But yeah, I'd take her. um oh, musicians wise, if I had to take a producer, because I'd maybe make it, the current way I feel is I'd maybe take someone like Grades or Blue May, but they're
Oh,
like UK based producers. I don't know if you know them, but Grades is like, he did a lot of the Neo stuff
yes.
for and I've worked with him before. Like, our sessions weren't at all Neo sounding. Um but I feel like it would be a producer. And actually the producer that I work with, maybe more so Detonate, because he has the musicality where he can play however many instruments, but then also be the producer in the room too. So I think maybe him. And then I've got a friend who's an activist. Very much, I call her that. She's that vibe. Mpho McKenzie. She's also my business partner.
Awesome.
Um, I'd I'd take her because we'd have a whole load of conversations that would be great.
It's nice when I can see that you have a connection with all these people in many ways, not just one way, it's in like in many ways. I can see it. So that, first of all, I think it will be a conversation where you guys will get down to business as well. And then it would be a lot about how you would change the world, most probably. And then and then the last one is what we're eating. So
Listen, and that's why my activist friend will come in handy, because we'll be like, what are we cooking?
I love that.
Who's gonna kill some fish, or who's vegan here?
That would be quite cool, actually. No, one question I do want to ask you is, music is in us, in like 90% of us, or a lot of people might be corporate, but they might still love music. But if I was to say to you, how do you take yourself away or balance your life from music? Because if music, like you have a business and you have two businesses in music, how do you balance your life so that you can take yourself away to have time for who you are as a person?
um I think I have the blessing of having many friends who are not in music, and
Mm.
I did that on purpose, because I think sometimes if you're in the industry and all your friends are songwriters and all your friends are producers, there's like sometimes a competitive thing that happens. Sometimes
Mm.
if you're lucky enough to have supportive creatives around you, then it can be like every conversation is about things of that nature. I think for me, I just wanted to have real people in my life that will, that I have
Yeah.
real conversations with about normal stuff, and that keeps me grounded in a way. So a lot of times people will be like, oh, you work in this and you do that, but it's like, yeah, I do, but I kind of just want to stay away from that while I'm over here in this space. I kind of just want to talk about normal things, and not about the kind of stardom of the industry side, because I just feel like it's cool and all, but it's empty in its
Yes.
essence. So it's kind of like, I want to connect on things that are real. Like, show me something that's real. Talk to me about something that's real.
100%.
And not saying that those things are not real, but I love depth, and I love kind of like getting to the bones of the bones of a conversation, or where people are at, or how their journeys have shaped their lives, and just the real stuff, and less about ego, because I think the
Yeah.
industry is very much about stroking egos. So it kind of disables people from speaking freely
I
and
agree.
honestly,
Yep.
you know? So it's like, you just want to have those authentic conversations. And I guess that brings me back to that word. I know it's a popular word, but I feel like it's a popular word at the moment for a reason,
Yes.
because people have been so kind of detached without even realizing it from those things that are kind of true to themselves or authentic within themselves, or you've tried to suppress things about yourself that really that's just you, and there's power in embracing those things. So I love, I think that's how I've maintained the balance, kind of just going for those girls trips with the girls that are not like in music or working in that space, but we're just having a good time.
I love that. When was the last time that you felt totally at peace with yourself?
Do you know, I feel like I had that feeling this morning, which I'm
Ooh,
grateful to
okay,
say.
okay, yeah.
I'm grateful to say, because sometimes you can be going through hardship, or just kind of like having to make hard decisions about what where you're at and what aligns with yourself. But in order to do that, there has to be a sense of peace, so that you can say, okay, what is it that I'm doing right now?
That makes sense.
Um, so I'd say this morning, yeah.
If there was one,
You? What about you? What about you?
yeah.
Sorry, I want to
Oh,
know.
so I wake up every morning at 5 o'clock and I meditate, and that's when I feel at
Right.
peace. So it's every morning when I wake up at 5 o'clock when I feel like the world is still,
Mm,
and
yeah.
no one is up yet. Or well, a majority of the world is not up yet, and I just feel like that's when I am. Every morning I always write the 10 things that I'm grateful for as well.
Mm,
So I get up,
yeah.
I write my 10 things, and then I meditate for an hour, and then I let my day begin. So I would say every morning. Thank you for asking.
No, it's cool, because I love because I enjoy meditating as well. And I just thought, with that question, when, like, how often is everyone, or just myself and yourself,
Yeah,
tuning into that? And I think meditation is a powerful way of doing that.
I think a
Yeah.
lot of people lose it, because lose that way of finding their peace. Like, I spoke to someone just the other day, and they said to me, he says that he never finds peace because he's always in his mind thinking of what's the next thing. I said it makes sense that you can't find you not that you can't find it, but you're always looking for the next thing. But just don't lose the time you have on the planet, or on the earth, or on the universe, as people say, because time we think is long, but it's actually really short. Like, I've been on this conversation with you for like an hour. It feels like 10 minutes, because the way that both of us are just talking to each other about so many different things, it feels like it's just an easy conversation that we're having. But there are some people in the world who feel like they can't find peace, because in their minds there's always a next thing of peace might be better somewhere else or for something else.
Yeah, and I think what, when you meditate, right, you'll be familiar with this, but there's that whole concept around mindfulness and kind of not judging the thoughts that you're having
Exactly that.
whilst you're having them, right? So it's like you're sitting there and you're there, and so in some ways I understand what the guy's saying, because your mind can literally be full of all those things, but it's kind of like almost finding the space in between those things and kind of not judging yourself for that, right? So I know that that's the whole point of meditation, and kind of you become the observer of your thoughts, right? So it's like
Exactly that.
in that there can be a peace and a stillness, that even though your thoughts are kind of running wild, and the fact that you don't identify with the thoughts, I think that's the part where for me it's like, okay, that's powerful. Now I can see that there's those thoughts and they exist in all of us. They're like universal things, right? Like we all feel, or all will have, like loving thoughts, but then judgmental thoughts, and then envious thoughts, or whatever. Like all of us have it, and there's no running away from it, but we try. So it's like, I think the thing about embracing it for me is the powerful part, where it's like, okay, in that, even in that, I can have peace,
Yes.
because it's just part of what is going on inside me. You're like making peace with all the madness in your head.
Which is mad itself, to be quite honest. Well, I've only got two more for you, but my second to last question is, I often talk about legacy to people because people have a certain perception of what legacy is. Um, in my mind, I see a legacy as an everyday thing, because you can say something to someone in the gentlest of words, but they can carry that with them for the rest of their life. So therefore, you've left a legacy in that person every day. So it's not a legacy in the sense where, you've gone and you're not existing on the planet anymore and people are thinking of you in that way. But it's a legacy that you are still here, you're still present, and you're helping people to have a legacy of you and your own perception without you even knowing. But what I would like to ask you is, how do you view the word legacy? And if you are here, and even if you are not here, how would you like people to view you and think of you as a person?
I think legacy for me, in a lot of times, like we will talk about people's achievements, or kind of successes from a one-dimensional viewpoint, where we're
Yes.
looking at um the achievements in just that society would accolade you for, like, okay, yeah, they won the Grammy, they won the this, or they won the that. But I think for me personally, it's a bit more of a rounded thing, all encompassing the whole holistic um kind of component of someone's life. So it's
Yes.
like everything you touch is a part of your legacy.
Yeah.
Whether that's I think there's a quote that I know I've posted it somewhere, but and there's a lady that, I don't know if you've heard of this book called Women Who Run with Wolves. Have you heard of that
It
book?
sounds familiar. That's an
Yeah,
awesome
I think
book. way.
Yeah, it's a powerful book. It's a powerful read. I think sometimes I have to put it down because I'm like, okay, this is a lot for me now. It's one of those like meaty reads, I guess essentially whatever the terms you want to call it, it's about kind of your like about your inner knowing and things like of that nature. But for me, she kind of talks about the different rhythms of at me being a woman of a woman's life, like the rhythms of a woman's life that may be made up of solitude, of birthing babies, birthing projects, creative projects. Like there's all these different seasons of aloneness, of togetherness, of connection with others. And we're going through our life with all these different kind of seasons or rhythms. And I think for me, if I think of my life as a tree, all of that is on that tree. It's all different branches of me. And I feel like for someone to talk about my legacy, they're going to only really be able to encompass some of it from the aspect that they see, right? So it will be like my kids, they know me as their mother. So they will talk about what I was like as a mother. And that holds a great deal of significance. But then there's other parts of me that they don't even see or they don't even know. So I just think I think that I don't know if we get full glimpses of the magnitude of someone's legacy. I think we get like glimmers of it and we're like, oh yeah. And I think that's the powerful thing about life, and you think you know people, but there's always more to know. There's always
Yes.
more. And even if sometimes they're not even aware of themselves, like what is going on in them and all these things. And I think that's why I find people fascinating, why I find conversations that we're having even now, like why I love it, because it's like you think you're having this exchange and like you know the person, but you don't really know the person and what people possess. So for me it's a much bigger idea, but I think legacy can be found in in I guess in anything that our hands touch, really.
Yeah. And within words, I think that's powerful. I think that's 100% powerful. So I've only got one more for you, but I would love for you to be able to tell everyone about your two companies that you have, your music companies, and also where people can find you, and just if they would like to ask you a question or if you would like to anyone to connect with you, please let us know where we can find you.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so I'd say the best place to connect with me is on Instagram. I'm there on under my name, Tekiva, Tekiva.
Yeah.
So yeah, please add me, come and say hi for whatever. I get all sorts of questions on a daily, so I'm open to that. I'd say my two companies are essentially, one was birthed out of my relationship with my business partner Nathaniel, who's a producer, and
Yes.
we have Detonate music together, and we essentially, I was a songwriter, he was a producer, and we've just gone on that whole journey of supporting one another throughout the last 2 decades since we met. And he is a phenomenal producer. I still like kind of run the operations of all of that, and he has just been nominated for his second Grammy. So I've been there on that whole journey. For myself, we've worked on projects like Olivia Dean last year that was like nominated for a Mercury Award. There was another Grammy that was nominated, that we were nominated for a song that we'd done with Diana Ross.
Yeah.
Like there's been a lot of and then more recently the nomination for Nathaniel was for a song by Celeste on the Color Purple soundtrack. So there's been a lot on that side. And then where we worked a lot together in the studio, we would work with a lot of artists that would come in, and I'd be there to write. And in those scenarios, I found myself just doing more and more kind of production, thinking about production stuff, working with him on production stuff, and just saying, like, I think we could do this or we could do that. We'd explore a lot of different like fusing genres, and I just love that process. So with that, and kind of developing the artist, if they were open to it, it was like sky's the limit. Like, we just love creating a sound or a almost like a feel, a musical feel to that person. So then that gave birth to then me starting my second company, which I started with two others, but I work with my business partner Mpho McKenzie on that one, MUVVA. And we basically, the premise was to develop artists and help them kind of maintain their creativity and manage that creativity, and kind of just step into, I guess, essentially managing an A&R from the angle of, like, this person is a kind of looking at them more holistically rather than commercially, and trying to think, if we look at them holistically, we can actually help them achieve like a just more substance along the way, and that they're a healthier individual. Just, with the likes of, like, loads of artists that are ending up in rehab or are just walking through hard paths, that there's a lot going on there, and they've got this creativity and it's powerful, but then there's also, like, real life situations that need handling at the same time. So we just wanted to approach management from a different angle, but also be a part of the artist development. So that basically, it was artist development stroke management. And then we're kind of always working on different ways of implementing that into different things that we do. So that's kind of been the two companies and my journey. And then I love working with individuals, like, one-on-one. So I'm kind of just very much about working with people in that creative space, or people that want to further their creativity. That's very much my heart and passion.
I like that. One thing I love about life is being able to celebrate people's successes with them. So this is me saying to you, I celebrate your success. I wish you even more success. And I want to thank you for taking your time to come on the Ask People show, to articulate your kindness, share your story of who you are, but also make people understand, in creativity, there is good times, there is bad times, but there is always an outcome for all of us. Like you say, it's in seasons that we go through. So thank you so much for coming on the show. I appreciate you.
No, thank you. It's been a pleasure to be here talking with you. And I want to hear your stuff too.
Don't worry. Don't worry. Definitely. We'll definitely do that. That's for sure. I will actually say this now live on the show. I hope that we get to work together.
That would be so cool. I'm down, girl. Say the word.
I like that. Well, let's go. So, guys, this is where I say to you, thank you so much for listening to the Ask People podcast. And please remember, you can subscribe and leave a comment on YouTube, Facebook, and any other platform that you prefer listening to. Please also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And you can also donate to the Ask People podcast by simply going to the Ask People podcast website and clicking on community. And you can also see us every Thursday, 8 p.m. UK time on Apple TV, Fire TV, YouTube, or LCBN TV, where you can catch a replay of any interview that I have on Wednesdays on Heart Songs Live at 9 p.m. UK time, and also catch us on every Tuesday, where I air a brand new pre-recorded episode of the Ask People podcast for you to listen to. And this is where I say, guys, thank you so much for listening. stay happy, stay positive, and as always, please continue to be kind to one another. Take care. Peace of mind, peace of mind, peace of mind. People say that having a peace of mind is trying to find a consistency of calmness within ourselves, to crave for a clarity that drives us through our emotional journey of life, to never let a person's judgment manifest into a fear inside of us.